What is happening, guys? Happy Monday, and welcome to the Dynasty WarZone, the People's Dynasty podcast. On today's show, we're a day late, but we are not short on talent. We have another guest this week. Last week, we had Dan Williamson from Stack Hunters, and tonight we have his tag team partner. Now, this guy is the news desk director here for Player Profiler. He is the co-host of Stack Hunters and all things news at Player Profiler. He's my buddy. He is Mr. Bradley Stalder. I knew I was going to get that wrong. And you can follow him at FF Stalder, Stalder on Twitter. Bradley, man, what's going on?
Memphis, great being back with you. I had you on Stack Hunters a couple months ago, and look at us getting onto the Dynasty WarZone. I'm excited. Thanks for the invite.
No, of course. Now, are you familiar with Bob Ross, the classic Americana painting guy with the nice hair? He used to say, you don't make mistakes, you have happy accidents. And, having Dan on last week to do the AFC version of this show. And then last night, this week is not Jerry's fault. This week's my fault. My schedule is the one that was cattywampus, and we weren't able to get everything lined up to get the show together. So I text Theo because, Theo's the director of content here at Player Profiler. And I was like, hey, dude, I'm going to have to bump the show till tomorrow night. Are you good with that? Theo being the ever awesome guy that he is. He's like, of course, Memphis, no problem. So then he's texting me. He's like, you still on for tonight? I'm like, yep, flying solo at 9:15. He's like, dude, I'll get you a guest. He's like, I'll get you a really good guest. And like literally it was 30 minutes later, maybe, I get a text from Bradley, and he's like, hey, what are we doing tonight? That's the coolest part about being a Player Profiler, man. So a happy accident. We had Dan from Stack Hunters giving us some dynasty and best ball opinions on these guys. AFC, you're going to do the NFC. But before that, please tell these people, in case they haven't heard about what's going on with the news desk. It's a separate YouTube channel. Please elaborate for us.
For sure. So Player Profiler News was founded last summer, and it started out with just a couple blurbs on playerprofiler.com/news. And then over the course of the last year, we brought in some awesome content creators from various parts of from the country and the world to offer their perspective. So what we do is we gather information from beat writers, from The Athletic, from lots of news sources, and sometimes we get out the news faster than the big sites that you get your NFL news from. But the great thing about playerprofiler.com/news is that you get not only great NFL information, you also get important fantasy information. And we've got some dynasty spin, we've got best ball spin, redraft spin, and then there's also some content creators who will put videos. So go to Player Profiler News, the YouTube channel. It's a separate YouTube channel. Want to make sure you guys are also getting into there and subscribing. We're almost at 500 subs, and that actually got started much later in the process. So mid NFL season, we started putting some content on there, and it's been great seeing the growth from all of the content creators. So I'm kind of like the conductor, where I don't play a lot of the music. I do like rankings for Player Profiler. I do the Stack Hunters podcast every Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern. But check out the Player Profiler News. I conduct it and make sure that the news that's getting out there is meaningful and helpful for all of you, especially as you're preparing for the your redraft drafts. Some of you are still having your rookie dynasty drafts right now. I know that I'm waiting on a few myself to get going. So playerprofiler.com/news is going to be very helpful for you as you are navigating. And you can you can filter by team, you can filter by position. There's and it's in a stream, so you can just keep scrolling and you'll see the development of news articles. So go to playerprofiler.com/news.
I love it, and I love a news. I don't say news only, but I love a primarily news site, because I'm a content creator, and you don't always want to go to Twitter and get that echo chamber of everybody's kind of saying the same thing. It's just nice to hear the news, and then form my own fantasy or dynasty opinion. So I know how many of you watch and listen to this show. There is no reason that by the time this podcast airs, they have doubled their number of subs. We should go from 500 subs on YouTube for Player Profiler News. We got to get them to 1,000 and tell them the Dynasty WarZone sent you. Well, Bradley, let's get into this. We'll get into the show. Normally we do good people, bad tweets. I have not gotten any good people, bad tweets. But I do know something that's good. We'll focus on the good, and we'll jump into a word from Underdog.
This episode is made possible by Underdog Fantasy, and Underdog Fantasy is the leader in best ball. When you go to join an Underdog Fantasy best ball draft, it fills very quickly, especially now. It's Best Ball Mania season, baby. Best Ball Mania 5. I can't believe they're at Best Ball Mania 5 already. $15 million in prizes. They're giving out $15 million with $1.5 million to first. Playing in best ball leagues makes you better. It helps train you on player value and strategy. And Underdog offers a lot more than just best ball contests. They offer pick'ems. My new favorite, the golf pick'ems. But they have the NBA pick'ems, baseball pick'ems going on throughout the offseason. Hit the pick'ems, back to best ball, hit the pick'ems. So use promo code Underworld. Promo code Underworld gets you a 50% deposit bonus up to $250. So they've increased the maximum deposit bonus. It was $100. Now it's up to $125. When you get the Underdog app, use promo code Underworld and go draft your ass off.
I love the go draft your ass off. It is a personal favorite. What are you seeing on Underdog right now? I know that you're the best ball specialist, you and Dan. What kind of trends are you seeing? Is there any players popping? Are there sought after stacks, quarterback, wide receiver, quarterback, tight end? Anything that you're seeing right now in the best ball market?
Yeah. So some of the interesting things that I've noticed is that, yes, we all know that wide receiver gets pumped up really quickly in the Underdog streets, but it's gotten out of control. It's kind of out of look, Memphis, we're drafting the likes of Zay Flowers 35th overall in this tournament. You're telling me that Zay Flowers is the 35th best player, or is even as in the distribution of where Zay Flowers could land? You're saying that 35th overall is within his range of outcomes for a best ball? I'm sorry, it's just not there, especially with a Mark Andrews healthy. I get Lamar Jackson MVP, but Zay Flowers, you're telling me that there's only 35 players better? Come on now. That's where it you start to lose the positional value. Wide receiver is very valuable. We want to get 3 wide receivers in the first 4 rounds in the Underdog drafts, but it's getting a little ridiculous out there, the way that people miss out on the elite tiers of your Marvin Harrisons, your Puka Nakuas, and their Devonta Smiths, the DK Metcalfs of the world. And then, you're pushing up the likes of Jaden Reed, who's 54th overall, or Hollywood Brown, 50th overall. There are just extremely mispriced wide receivers because the thirst is so strong. So my caution is, if you're going to be waiting on wide receiver, you have to be picking the right ones. Unfortunately, there are just some really mispriced bombshell wide receivers right now, and we have to avoid them.
It sounds crazy. It sounds like you are driving up a lot of running back value to, maybe almost go, I don't want to say hero RB, but multiple RB. I know hero RBs, you have the one hero RB and you try to get the wide receivers, but you could have a tag team. You could have a bunch of them. It sounds crazy because when I hear Zay Flowers going at the 3-4 turn, that feels a little aggressive where I'm from. But hey, I want to ask you a question. I found a good people, bad tweets.
Okay.
People don't like fantasy receipts. Fantasy receipts helps keep us in the good people, bad tweets business. I don't know if this one's good or bad. I just want your opinion. The first tweeter tweeted, True or false? Xavier Worthy has over 750 receiving yards this season, and a handle called Dynasty Talk said, "Bro, I'm putting my life savings on under." His prediction, or hers, its prediction is 54 receptions for 595 yards and 4 touchdowns. So who's closer, the original tweeter, KC Sports Network, or the one that said Dynasty Talk said 54 for 595 and 4?
You said 750. So great. I pulled up my projections. This is great. I can tell you, Memphis, who's closer. Xavier Worthy, I have projected for 52 receptions, 706 receiving yards, and 4 touchdowns. So,
I mean, so you're leaning closer to KC Sports Network, and this other guy is putting his life savings on a bad bet by saying well under 595. So I hope he didn't actually put, or she didn't actually put their entire life savings on the under. Do you think Patrick Mahomes bounces back this year? And no. I say bounces back as if he turned
no,
into
Memphis. No, the answer is no.
It's just no. The Patrick Mahomes that we saw 2019, 2020, the guy who lit the sky up with Tyreek Hill, that guy's not coming back anymore. He's going to be in that QB 8 to 10 range.
I have him projected to be my QB 11 this year.
Okay, I said 8 to 12. I mean, and please correct me if I'm wrong. It feels like he's Jared Goff at this point with a better PR department. He's a better winner as far as like real NFL games.
Well, that's a little tough. That's a little tough.
Where has Jared Goff lived the last several years?
Look, this is Aaron Rodgers.
Kirk Cousins?
Is what we're talking about. We're talking about Aaron Rodgers. Anything is within the range of outcomes for Patrick Mahomes. Sure, QB1 overall, he needs massive touchdown variance. The reason why I'm out on Mahomes, and I was out last year, I was Memphis. I had Mahomes as my quarterback 8 in projections last year, and I was laughed out of podcasts. I was scoffed at. Oh, Bradley, what are you doing? And the same holds true. The Kansas City Chiefs are running the ball effectively with Isaiah Pacheco. They found their running back who keeps defenses honest, and they don't have Tyreek Hill anymore. They don't have that game breaker. Could Xavier Worthy be that player, Memphis? Maybe, but probably not yet. So we have Rashee Rice, who might miss some time. We also have Hollywood Brown, who has gotten worse over the last 3 years. Like, he's not been very good. And so you've got Rice, who we expect to be suspended for, I don't know, Memphis, 4 to 6 games. Is that fair to say right now?
6 is the number that I have. It's kind of like the legal system. He gets 6, right. He does 4. He gets 8, he does 6. It's something like that. I always use, like, my barometer when I'm guessing suspensions is Kareem Hunt. On camera, kicking a woman, 10 games. Where would I rank his crime compared to that crime? I think it's going to be in the neighborhood of 6. They could want to make an example out of him. I don't know, but I think 6 is fair.
I don't think they will. I don't think they will, because
they do have a video. Got 4.
They do have a video, right?
Right.
And usually that's, the difference maker. The reason why Deshaun Watson only got 11 games is because there was no video.
And most of the evidence was circumstantial. So, I mean, there was a lot of it, but it was a civil matter. It wasn't a legal matter. And I don't know, I'm not going down a Deshaun Watson rabbit hole. But
I'm sorry.
No. You're good. It's a long way to say is that the Chiefs offense and the players in it outside of Isaiah Pacheco is not a value. I've been on Isaiah Pacheco all off season. I loved what I saw the last 5 to 6 games of the regular season and in the playoffs. More involved in the passing game was the clear focus. They let Jerick McKinnon go. And the backup there is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think Keontae Ingram's on that roster. I mean, it's going to be a lot of Pacheco. My only concern with Pacheco is that maybe he gets hurt, because he runs like he's fighting the air. Like he's literally in a fist fight with the air. and that's how he runs. So when you run to contact like that, you are more susceptible to injury. But I think he'll be okay. So I want to thank the good folks at Fantasy Receipts for giving us good people bad tweets. We didn't have one last week. Of course, we got to give you Dana White. It's not good people bad tweets without Dana White.
Cocaine isn't cheap. It's expensive. Got to make money.
Thanks, Dana.
Yep.
There you go. Don't know why I chose that one, but that was the Dana White soundbite. And that was good people bad tweets talking about Xavier Worthy and his yardage prop for the season. So, all right, Bradley, we're going to jump into this. I'm going to start hitting you with some AFC depth chart. NFC. We did AFC last week with Dan. If you didn't listen, you can go back and find it in the archives on YouTube or podcast. But these, I just went through and I looked through every team's depth chart. You can find them over at playerprofiler.com if you have a subscription. Bradley makes sure they get updated because he's the news desk guy. Brad's like, hey, here's a guy, here's a news blurb. Someone move him up. And one that I noticed today is he's one of the starting outside receivers for the Dallas Cowboys. Going into year 3 is Jalen Tolbert. What are your thoughts on Jalen Tolbert? You know, you mentioned earlier in the show that he, you know, a lot of the people are forcing up value on wide receiver. If you're trying to round out the back of your, say, underdog roster, is Jalen Tolbert someone that you would want to stuff an extra share in?
It's an interesting situation with the Dallas Cowboys because that wide receiver role is very open. And there hasn't been a clear winner so far in OTAs. Like Tolbert's name has been thrown around. Ryan Flournoy's name has been thrown around. Jalen Brooks has been thrown around. Like looking back at what Jalen Tolbert was able to do last year, really not a big breakout player. You know, 6'1", 194, not really built to win a lot on the outside, but yeah, decent speed. But Memphis, I don't know if you've looked at the player profiler comp. Do you know his player profiler comp offhand?
I do not.
It's Adam Thielen.
See, and the reason Adam Thielen's a PPR machine.
And that's why it's interesting because
small school guys,
if we remember, it took him forever to break out. He missed year 1 and year 2. Like he had combined 31 targets over the course of 2 seasons. And then he got more opportunity in Minnesota, 92 targets, wide receiver 36 in fantasy points per game in his 3rd season. So if we're following a similar player profiler comp trajectory, we see a player who does get more opportunity, then ends up getting 80, 90 targets and has becomes more fantasy relevant. So for Tolbert, though, you know, it's hard to figure out who's going to be that guy. I have him projected as my wide receiver 67, 13% target share, 72 targets, 570 receiving yards, and 4 touchdowns. Now, the reason why he's very interesting at the end of drafts is not only because of that possibility that he wins the wide receiver 3 job. We know what Dak Prescott can do with his wide receivers. We've seen CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, but the reason why it's interesting is because especially if you play on underdog, week 17, Dallas Cowboys play the Philadelphia Eagles, and that game could turn into a massive shootout, and Tolbert being the wide receiver 3 could be the wide receiver 2 for the Cowboys in that game, and that might be a missing flex piece for you in what could be a very nice shootout. So we want, you know, pieces of these fantasy playoff games between 2 offenses that we know are going to be high scoring. So Tolbert, I think he's worth taking shots on at the end of drafts.
I mean, for me, from I wanted your best ball perspective. From the dynasty perspective, I think he's free. I think he's free 99. I think he's a throw-in on a lot of trades. What intrigued me was not so much Jalen Tolbert, but it's the opportunity. Interesting talent. You know, again, he went to a small school. I think it was South Alabama or somewhere, Alabama A&M maybe. What I'm interested in is that Dallas threw the ball 614 times last year. Now that's a 13% target share. That's about 80 targets. I know this. I know CeeDee Lamb had 180 targets last year, and Jake Ferguson had 102. So that other 320-ish have to go somewhere. Michael Gallup is gone, leaving behind 57 targets. So you can see very quickly where 80 and maybe with the upside of 100 targets and what's been a very prolific offense is something I'm interested in, because the Cowboys last year scored the most points in the NFL. And if you're looking for that dart throw lottery ticket for your dynasty roster or a guy to throw on the back end, why wouldn't you want to have a guy attached? It's Bradley. Is it impossible to think that he could become the number 2 overall target ahead of Jake Ferguson? I mean,
no, not impossible.
It's the high end. It's the high end of his range of outcomes, but possible.
I mean, he could overtake an older Brandon Cooks. Cooks was inefficient last year. Yards per route run was down relative to his career. PFF receiving grade was down relative to his career. So you have you have a guy who's been in the Dallas Cowboys organization for a couple of years. He knows the system. He knows Dak Prescott's tendencies. He also knows that it's probably Tolbert's job to lose, right? The wide receiver 3 spot. So he's probably going to be working his tail off to win it out over Flournoy and Brooks and anyone else that might be on the depth chart there. I think Jalen Tolbert, his ADP on Underdog Fantasy right now, 203. So yeah, virtually free.
And a guy that I like, and I think rightfully so, I think Tolbert's arc could be as equally positive as Josh Palmer. You know, now Josh Palmer doesn't have a CeeDee Lamb there to contend with for targets, but then again, the Chargers aren't going to potentially pass at the same volume the Cowboys are. So there's some give and take there. I get why people are excited for Josh Palmer. I like Josh Palmer. I just think there's some low-hanging fruit with Jalen Tolbert, given the offense and the quarterback play. Someone I want to look at. But I also want to talk about the Dallas backfield.
Sure.
Because we were all on Rico Dowdle all off season. And then they re-signed Zeke. The reason why I like this backfield is, again, very high scoring. When a team scores a lot of points, it's a lot of points to be had touchdown-wise for the running backs. But Tony Pollard leaves behind 57 targets in his own right.
Yes.
Who are you taking in this offense right now? Are you a Rico Dowdle guy or are you a Zeke Elliott guy? Because Zeke's listed as the starter.
Yeah, so I have Zeke right now as my running back. Rico Dowdle's 44 for me in best ball rankings, and Zeke is at 36. So I do have Zeke with the slight edge. Last year, he proved to be a competent back. And the reason why I think he's going to continue to be entrusted with rushes and with targets is because he can stay on the field. He's one of the best pass blocking running backs in the NFL. He knows the offense. Dak Prescott can trust him. Look, we're not going to get 5 yards to carry like we did when he was 24, 25 years old. We're going to probably get 3.8 to 4.2, somewhere in that range. But 5 rushing touchdowns outside the range of possibility? No, that's pretty easy. Zeke Elliott can win at the goal line. He'll consistently get you 3 yards, 4 yards. So another player that I think is going to, he's going to be on the field. And so does Rico Dowdle have more juice? Probably. I think he's going to be more efficient back. We could see Rico Dowdle turning into a Tony Pollard type. But I think that there's also organizational trust with Zeke. He was a priority free agent. They went out and signed him much quicker, after the NFL draft. He was one of the free agent running backs that was a target for the Cowboys after they forewent a running back in the draft. Memphis, as an aside, how surprised were you that the Dallas Cowboys didn't draft a running back in the NFL draft?
I will start with I was surprised, but when we were in the draft house in Michigan, every time the Cowboys, it was literally for 3 days, because we were there on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Every single time the Cowboys would come up, whoever the best available running back was, someone would say, hey, this is it. so-and-so is going to the Cowboys, and they didn't take
Right.
anybody. It tells me that they liked Dottle more than anyone in this class, but they knew they had to have some depth behind him. And I do agree that Zeke's the starter, but it's clearly not guys like Snoop Connor, Royce Freeman, Malik Davis. It's Zeke
Memphis,
and Rico
the
Dottle.
RB1 for Dallas isn't on the roster yet.
You think they'll make a trade or like a free agent, a cut signing?
Miles Sanders, Khalil Herbert. I love Khalil Herbert. He's one of my easy smashes at the end of drafts. Khalil Herbert would be an automatic top 15 running back if he was on the Dallas Cowboys.
And as far as real NFL draft compensation, especially if Chicago likes Roschon as much as the Podfather likes Roschon, then giving up a guy like Khalil Herbert doesn't feel like a big ask. So I definitely wanted to get your thoughts on the running back situation due to the potency of the offense. But another running back that I want to ask you about is Eric Gray. Any interest out there in best ball for Eric Gray? Now, he's listed as the backup behind Devin Singletary, and Devin Singletary is kind of mid. If I'm going to go with a running back free agent signing on a new team, I'd rather have a Zach Moss. But he is listed as the backup, and even though even though the Giants defense was pretty bad last year, they were third from the bottom, like the third worst in points scored. They were still in the middle of the pack in rushing and running back usage. Any interest in, maybe it's not Gray and Devin Singletary? Where are you seeing these guys going? Is this just like a non-starter for you with the Giants?
Yeah, Eric Gray is not someone that I'm targeting. I'm occasionally taking shots on a Tyrone Tracy. He's going in the 180s or so of ADP, but I'm not excited about this Giants offense. You have to remember, most of the rushing was by running backs last year, Saquon Barkley in particular. Barkley had an 82% rush share because Daniel Jones was out for the majority of the season. Daniel Jones gets a 25% rush share himself. So he's going to, and he's coming back from the ACL tear. I get it, whatever. I don't care, actually. He's like Kyler Murray in that it's not going to matter. Kyler came back from his ACL tear last year and showed almost no signs of slowing down. So I think that Daniel Jones is also going to be rushing. He's going to be playing for his job for the future because the Giants have an injury language in his contract, blah, blah, blah. They're going to play him. The Giants believe that this has to be the year. They've invested so much up until this point. So I think that, yes, Devin Singletary is going to be the lead back, but is it going to be Tyrone Tracy? Maybe. It's not a fun
offense to talk about unless you're talking Malik Neighbors.
I might have one. Well, even Neighbors in the best ball streets. Like, we talk about a wide receiver that is pumped up in ADP. Malik Neighbors, 26th overall.
I was good. I mean, I'm not saying because you already said 20. I was going to say 24th, and that was simply based off the fact that you said Zay Flowers was going 35th. I had to figure a round of inflation there.
The pathway for Malik Neighbors to pay off, 26th overall, disastrous. Instead, if you're looking for one target in this New York Giants offense, it's Wan'Dale Robinson. Robinson's going in the 160s of ADP. Yes, he's not going to get a ton of touchdowns, but he was also coming back from an ACL tear, and he earned targets. Darren Waller's retired. Look, there's no one else in the slot that's going to compete for slot targets with Wan'Dale Robinson. We're here for that. Give me Wan'Dale Robinson at value.
I like it. Well, I want to talk about a rookie then. Let's stay in the NFC East. It's always about the NFC East, whether the teams are good or bad. We always have to watch them on primetime games, it feels like. And a rookie this is one where I have to own this because I'm underweight on Luke McCaffrey. And I'm sure you've seen the news blurbs being the director of the news desk. McCaffrey's having quite the spring season. Obviously we're a month away from camp, but he is listed as the starting slot wide receiver for the Commanders. And you know who his best comparable is on Player Profiler?
I did at one point. It's not Zay Jones, is it?
It is 100% Zay Jones.
Let's go.
Look at this guy. Look at this guy. Talk about a pro. He's a pro. But I'm banking on the family. I'm banking on if you've ever seen any of the way that Christian McCaffrey and Luke McCaffrey were raised, they had to go to bed at like 8 o'clock. They had to eat a perfect diet. If he falls in that family, even if he's Eli Manning to Christian McCaffrey's Peyton Manning, you could get a pretty good athlete. And he's an older wide receiver. He's 23. And also, this is a bet on Cliff Kingsbury. Yes. In the Cliff Kingsbury offense, as a rookie, he let Kyler Murray throw the ball 542 times in a 16-game season. So if you extrapolate that out +1, it'd be 585 attempts. I think that spells really good things for Terry McLaurin. Maybe it's a third-year breakout for Jahan Dotson, that post-hype sleeper, if you will. But another guy that I see a little bit in Luke McCaffrey is Christian Kirk. And Christian Kirk in his sophomore season had 108 targets in this offense with a rookie QB named Kyler Murray. So you add up the family history, you add up the what-ifs, you add up that he's already a starter as a rookie. I'm more excited than I was during draft season on Luke McCaffrey. What do you think? I mean, if you want to throw in a dynasty nugget, please feel free. But what are you seeing? Is he someone that if you miss out on a wide receiver wave in underdog or best ball, that maybe knowing that he's a starter now, he might be worth a flyer those last round or two?
Oh, I love drafting Luke McCaffrey. I have a 14% share of him on underdog. So look at that. There we go. The Podfather's trying to talk me out of it. I'm like, nope. Luke McCaffrey is going to get at least, he's going to get a sprinkling of rushing. He's going to get a 12+% target share. We are here for year one, Luke McCaffrey as a starter for a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback in Jaden Daniels. Yes. So there's two rookies that are ascending. Jahan Dotson took a major step backwards last year. And so Luke McCaffrey is chosen by this regime, right? Dan Quinn was in the fold at this time for this pick. So Dan Quinn's a pro's pro when it comes to head coaching. He took the Atlanta Falcons to the Super Bowl. Yes, they lost the Super Bowl in spectacular fashion.
Very, very famously.
But you have to give a coach credit when credit's due. And, for many, many years, he and Matt Ryan did very, very well together. Now, Luke McCaffrey, he's a player that I could see him getting 60, 70 touches pretty easily this season. And to be a year one 60, 70 touch type of player, there's room for him. It's what McLaurin here. I like McLaurin. I think anyone who says if they have bad things to say about McLaurin, they're wrong. But McLaurin also has not been the mega target gobbler that we've seen. Like, we know DK Metcalf can get into that 40% target share from time to time. We've seen DJ Moore get into the 40+%. AJ Brown, McLaurin's not in that tier and will never be in that tier. So we're also looking at a much more evenly distributed target share for the other pieces in this Washington offense, whether it's Luke Sinnott, whether it's Zach Ertz at tight end for at least some of the games this season. If Jahan Dotson doesn't pan out, it's Luke McCaffrey who's going to get a lot of opportunity.
Well, I'm gonna compare him to a couple of Rams. Do you know how tall Cooper Kupp is? He's 6'2", same as Luke McCaffrey. Both weigh about 200 pounds. Both are listed per player profiler as their team's slot receiver, except that Luke McCaffrey is a much better athlete. If you look at the measurables, the 40, the speed score, the burst score, all of those things on player profiler. Now, let's envision not only that, but he's working with a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback in an offense that we know is going to throw the ball in a division with the Cowboys and the Eagles are going to have to score. All of a sudden, I don't want to go as, because this is not the hot take show. I don't want to go as bold as to say this could be this year's Puka Nacua, but I will say that if he is this year's Puka Nacua, I am going to be 0% surprised. How's that for a little bonus spicy take for you?
You know, what's encouraging about Luke McCaffrey is that he got the draft capital. He got the day 2 draft capital that was elusive for some of the other players that went into day 3. Unfortunately, you know, you're looking at a few of the running backs that we were hopeful for, like the Jalen Wrights, you know, and whatnot. Luke McCaffrey got day 2 draft capital. So for him to be automatically working as a starter, getting the draft capital, having the pedigree, there's a lot of stars aligning for Luke McCaffrey in 2024 and beyond.
I think for both, get him now, because some of the guys that we talk about, they may be a year away, but like this guy, he will have immediate value and his value will go up quickly. Let's do one more rookie and then we'll take a quick break and then we'll wrap the show up. Let's talk Marshawn Lloyd.
Sure.
And the reason why he caught my eye is he's already listed as the RB2 ahead of A.J. Dillon, who they re-signed. Now, they didn't give him big money. They brought him back on a 1-year deal. They gave all the big money to Josh Jacobs. They literally gave him 4. You know, this time last year, all the running backs were crying the blues, not getting paid, blah. And a lot of running backs got paid this offseason. Josh Jacobs got 4 years, $48 million. Now we know he'll never see all $48 million. But that being said, what are you seeing with Marshawn Lloyd? Because I kind of feel like there's some steam on him, and I'm not sure why, because Jacobs is a pretty healthy guy.
I love Marshawn Lloyd. I think this is the appropriate place on the depth chart for him. Lloyd looks like what the Packers wanted A.J. Dillon to be, and that is a power runner. Unfortunately, Dillon was a power runner, but he's as slow as molasses. It looks like he was running through mud in the offensive line. And that's not going to work because the Packers wanted an Aaron Jones, a Thunder and Lightning type of deal. The Lightning being Jones, the Thunder being Dillon. And it was just not working, partly because Jones was not staying healthy and Dillon was being ineffective. So now you've got Marshawn Lloyd and Josh Jacobs, who the Packers saw Josh Jacobs be a pass catcher a couple years ago with the Vegas Raiders. And he's able to stay mostly healthy. He's played 13 or more games in pretty much every season, which is more than what Aaron Jones has been dealing with. And so I think the Packers also believe in the split backfield. So this is not just Marshawn Lloyd being direct handcuff. This is also Marshawn Lloyd handcuff plus he's going to get some drives just himself. So I think that Marshawn Lloyd, he's an easy click, when you're getting into the 140s, 150s of your best ball drafts, because if Josh Jacobs does go down, I mean, they're not going to trot out A.J. Dillon for meaningful snaps if Marshawn Lloyd's there.
I agree. I think Josh Jacobs is the de facto number one. Might be one of the few bell cows left in the league. Like if we look back and this guy gets a 70% snap share, I'm not going to be surprised at all. I think from a dynasty standpoint, I might leverage this to move Lloyd. I think he's worth a lot now. I think that will dip in season. For me, in season, he'll become a buy. I think a lot of people are over drafting him right now. I've got his underdog ADP. It's 142.
Yeah.
So what is that? Yeah, so right there, just around the 12th round. I think he won't return that this year. I think there's just some hype around the Green Bay offense. I think Josh Jacobs is a star. So if you're looking for
all of the Green Bay Packers have been pushed up. You're Dontavian Wicks is round 10 now.
You're kidding me. I was going to mention Jaden Reed, but that would be redundant for the normal audience here at Player Profiler. I am super bullish on Jaden Reed this year. I think he establishes himself as the wide receiver one, maybe not from like a red zone target, but an overall target standpoint. I think he's just going to feast this year. What are your thoughts? But real quick before we go to commercial, what are your thoughts on Jaden Reed this year?
Memphis, I will fight you. I am out on Jaden Reed.
Really? No, I'm looking. If you're watching live on YouTube, just over your head there is a Packers pennant. Robert Tonyan. It is the Packers everything. And you're not in on Jaden Reed?
I'm in on Christian Watson. Watson is the target earner. He is the one. He's more athletic. He wins more down the field. They pulled Jaden Reed off the field when Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave were on the field in the 2 tight end sets. It was Jaden Reed who was pulled off. The question is, okay, it's going to be Christian Watson out there. Is it going to be Romeo Doubs or Dontavian Wicks as the other wide receiver? Because I think the Packers really want to go with the 2 tight end sets. And so, unfortunately, it's Jaden Reed who's going to be hurting in the target share and the snap share. Christian Watson, though, is going to play every single down. And yes, you're going to argue. I can hear the arguments already. Oh, is he healthy? Is he healthy? It doesn't matter. This is a player, 19% target share. I had projected 92 targets. This is Watson, 53 receptions, 744 receiving yards, 9 receiving touchdowns. He is a big winner down the field. He's what everyone wanted Gabe Davis to be, but Gabe Davis isn't good. Christian Watson is good at football.
Well, I hope we get a healthy year, and we'll have to circle back. Maybe like I'll take Reed, you take Watson, and whoever has more underdog points, the loser buys dinner or lunch next year at the Draft House. How about that?
I love it.
All right, so
beer bet. I love it.
Beer bet. Yeah, so there you go. We've made a friendly wager on today's show. I'm team Jaden Reed. He's team Christian Watson. But I will tell you, if you're a dynasty player, you're going to want to be on team Player Profiler.
This episode is brought to you by Player Profiler, the Dynasty Deluxe package. The rankings are the best in the industry. It includes strategy mode where you can say, hey, change the rankings to be win now. Oh, change the rankings to be productive struggle. There's also a draft planner to help strategize where you should take players because the draft planner also includes ADP. There's a trade finder where we look up on My Fantasy League and we see trades that are done, including a particular player. Then there's a trade analyzer where you can plug in draft picks, players, and we assign a lifetime value to draft picks out 5 years. The best thing about our trade analyzer, it can't be gamed with volume. And there's mock draft data to see right now what's the market for player X versus player Y, including in the fall when very few mock drafts are happening. And our Dynasty Guide, the Dynasty Dominator, would cost you $10 on Amazon, but you get it for free with Dynasty Deluxe, and you get our Rookie Guide for free, a $25 value. So you get all of that for $45. So it's a great deal.
It is a great deal, and we're gonna wrap this thing up with a few more.
Memphis, before we move on, Rubio says my wife has the same pimple. This is not a pimple. This is sunburn. I've been spending my time outside on the lawn, touching grass and getting some sun. Thank you, Rubio, for paying attention to my face instead of my player takes. There you go. It's sunburn because I'm touching grass.
So while we're talking about funny sun-related stories, I'll tell you one from this weekend. So the regular listeners know I coach baseball, and obviously in the summertime in Indiana, it's hot. Well, as a coach, you can't wear a tank top. You can't roll your sleeves up. So when I say, and for those watching, I'm blinding the audience. Like I have the world's worst farmer's tan. So the other day, I had ordered some team shirts, and one of our admins brought me some team shirts, and I'm switching out of like a normal t-shirt into like a team branded shirt. And one of my guys, he's a great kid, his name's Gage. He's like, "Holy cow, coach." He's like, "You've got the worst farmer's tan I've ever seen in my entire life. It is bad. It is like bad. Like I am super tan on the arms and face, but like I am pasty as can be on the chest up. It's tough out here in the sun. You're getting burnt on the face. I've got a farmer's tan. This is tough.
And this is pretty dark. The I don't know, whatever. The light isn't doing it justice, but my face.
Yeah, the ring lights are helping.
They are.
Let's go to New Orleans real quick. Both A.T. Perry and Rashid Shaheed are both listed as starters. Do you prefer one or the other? Again, kind of similar question to earlier in the show. Is there a guy amongst these two that you're looking one over the other? Because I like this offense. It's a Clint Kubiak offense. He's been a one-time OC. He OC'd the 21 Vikings that threw the ball 600 times. And A.T. Perry is listed as the other boundary wide receiver, along with Chris Olave. And Shaheed's listed as the slot receiver. Out of the non-Olave options, which one of these two do you like better?
Yeah, from a pure fantasy points perspective, it's Rashid Shaheed. I have Shaheed projected for a 15.5% target share, 82 targets, about 60 receptions, almost 700 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns. And then you sprinkle in a little bit of the motion that you expect from the Kubiak offense. Shaheed's got speed to burn, and he's earned his way to be the wide receiver too. I do believe that Shaheed is a little overvalued in the best ball streets. Right now, he's going as 114th overall, which is not aligning with my projections. I have him as more of 148th overall, so about 2.5 rounds later. And these projections take into account positional weight. So it does account for the fact that you need 3 wide receivers, and it does take into account that, or you need to start 3 wide receivers, and that wide receivers score differently and contributing to your team to get to whatever. Essentially, even adjusted for positional value, Rashid Shaheed is relatively overpriced in the best ball streets. However, A.T. Perry is virtually free. And you'd think, okay, A.T. Perry had a couple big games last year. But I only have A.T. Perry projected for like 40 targets. So that's not going to get it done in any real meaningful fantasy sense. Dennis Allen has come out this offseason, said, yes, A.T. Perry has a lot of talent, but he's got to do a lot of work, essentially. And that's what we've updated in the Player Profiler News, stream, that ultimately, like, look, you can like A.T. Perry, but there's a lot of reasons to be out or believing that he didn't get the draft capital. He didn't produce much in year 1. There's 2 wide receivers ahead of him. Plus there's Juwan Johnson and Taysom Hill. Right? Taysom Hill's not going to go away. He's like kind of like the fantasy cockroach, but nevertheless,
can they make him a tight end again? Because
that would be nice.
On some, like I traded for him in a 2 must-start 2 tight end premium league, and thinking that I was going to have him as a tight end, and it did not work out that way for me. I got 1 year of usage out of him to then not get him. I'm also team Shaheed again. I don't think this is going to be one of the more. If you told me that like league winners came out of this division, the NFC South, I would not be surprised. I think Darnell Mooney, and I didn't write him down, but just someone in Carolina, whether it's Deontay Johnson, maybe Adam Thielen, there's going to be some point producers that we're not given enough love that are going to pop up. And
Tyler Algier, I think, is a very, very interesting handcuff if you're looking for running backs. We're talking that division. I mean, if Bijan Robinson's being drafted in the first round, middle of the first round, and we like this offense, if Bijan goes down Tyler Algier becomes a top 15, top 12 running back pretty easily.
Yes, I would agree. Well, I've got one more for you. All right.
Sure.
One more. We'll get you out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on last minute. Guy started a new job today. We want to congratulate him for the new gig, doing a little principal work there when he's not manning the news desk for Player Profiler. Well, let's talk Ricky Pearsall. Kind of a polarizing name. Some people think Ayuk could be traded. The reason why I wrote him down is because he's listed as the starter. He is listed as the third wide receiver. Now, this is not per Player Profiler. This is per our lads. He's listed as the starting, I believe it was the right side of the field, wide receiver. Does that do anything for you from a projection standpoint?
No, not really. This is already a difficult team to get significant fantasy value outside of your McCaffrey, Kittle, Debo, and Ayuk's. It's going to be extremely difficult to squeeze any other fantasy goodness out of those out of those players, because just do the math in your head. Like Brandon Ayuk, 23% target share. Debo, 20% target share. We're talking 43%. Kittle gets a 20% target share. Now we're at 63%. And then McCaffrey gets his 17% target share. We're at just about 80% of the targets from those four players. There's not really going to be room for a Jawan Jennings plus a Ricky Pearsall and a Jacob Cowing and any of the Eli Mitchell sprinklings that we're going to get, or anything of that nature. Look, I probably like Ricky Pearsall as much as the next guy in terms of like long-term value, but he's an easy avoid, especially given that Ayuk is expected to stay. That's actually a news update, is that Brandon Ayuk is expected to stay in 2024. It would be surprising if he moves on this year.
Yeah, and I mean, who was the other wide receiver they just signed? Was it Jawan Jennings? Was that so they re-signed him? I think he's a guy that's a year away from being a year away. If he breaks out next year, I think they can get out of Debo's contract next year. And it's been rumored that because they took care of Christian McCaffrey financially, that Trent Williams is wanting a little extra something, and Brock Purdy's going to be eligible for a contract extension. I think Debo's the one who goes, and you could see, not that Ricky Pearsall is Debo, but he could be used somewhat in that role. And Christian McCaffrey does a lot of that role as well. I was just fascinated. Like I said, I saw him listed as a starter, and I wanted to ask you from a best ball perspective if there was any movement. Now, do you think with the way wide receivers are steaming up that you think he could move a bunch in the offseason? Like, well, I guess the offseason's almost over, but come camp season, probably a better term.
I don't see much movement. I would be very surprised if we see Ricky Pearsall doing anything meaningful here. And like we would need to see Ayuk go back into the doghouse for us to get some Ricky Pearsall love. I mean, the reality is like we've seen Shanahan throw players into the doghouse, the proverbial doghouse, and we saw it with Dante Pettis many years ago. We saw it with, Trey Sermon.
There's a name. There's another name.
So we've seen this happen with Brandon Ayuk. We've seen this happen over the course of the last few years. Kyle Shanahan will not be afraid to put guys in the proverbial doghouse if he doesn't believe that they're doing what they need to do. So Memphis, I'm not in on Ricky Pearsall for 2024, but we can speculative add him in our dynasty leagues. That's fine. I don't mind.
I have very little, if any, Ricky Pearsall, and I intend to keep it that way. If I can leverage the fact that he's a starter to trade any Ricky, I'm fine for it. Because to your point, the targets are very funneled in San Francisco. It's clearly Ayuk, Debo, Kittle, CMC. Do
Yes.
I really want a team's fifth option if it's not a running back? I don't mind if you tell me Isaiah Pacheco's the fifth option for the Kansas City Chiefs in the passing game. I'm fine with that because I know he's going to get his rushing yards and rushing touchdowns. But for one of the most rush-happy teams in the league, I am going to pass, and I am going to sell Ricky Pearsall. And you said that he was short on opportunity, but we've not been short on great insight. You have been a tremendous guest. You mentioned Stack Hunters. What night do you guys record? You guys go live?
Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And this
Thursday
week, we've got D-Bro, Derek Brown of Fantasy Pros, coming on with Dan and myself. And we're going to talk some wide receiver depth charts. We're going to go into a little bit of, we're going to dive deeper into the Christian Watson, Jaden Reed debate. So we will see where D-Bro lands on that. But I'm excited to be chopping it up with him this week. And then we've got a few more guests lined up later on in July. So check it out. It is the Player Profiler Best Ball Podcast, Stack Hunters, 8 p.m. Eastern.
And don't forget, we got a double. We're on a mission. We here at the Dynasty WarZone, we are at a mission, and Player Profiler, because it's streaming live on their YouTube. I can see that there's a little icon. I'm pointing right at it on my laptop that tells me how many people are subscribing. If all of you who are watching currently just went to Player Profiler News, it's the separate channel. It's the one that's got 500 subs. If all of you people watching currently went and subscribed, they'd be over 1,000. And Bradley and the news team would be most appreciative, as would I. We do have another Player Profiler guest next week. It is the annual Memphis is out of town, so Jerry and Maddie Kiwoom are going to make fun of him edition of the Dynasty WarZone. I don't know what their topic will be because, again, with Jerry and Maddie, that conversation could veer all over the place. But Maddie has agreed to host and join Jerry. And this is where I take a little bit of a beating, but I can't say that it's not mostly deserved. So that'll be next week. Bradley, man, I owe you one. I will be watching Jaden Reed versus Christian Watson very intently, almost as intently as I watch Stack Hunters Thursday nights. I'll be checking out you and my buddy Dan and D-Bro this coming Thursday. But man, thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Memphis. Appreciate it.
No problem. So on behalf of Bradley, I am Memphis. And remember, here at Player Profiler and the Dynasty WarZone, we're just trying to make the world a better place for fantasy football. We'll be back next week. Well, Jerry will be back next week with Maddie for more Dynasty goodness. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to playerprofiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, data analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.